Welcome back, Mastercrafted Gaming fans. Kyle here to bring you a continuation on the Uncharted Empires, and today we're going to take a look at the Elven lists. That's the Sylvan Kin and the Twilight Kin. We'll start off with the Sylvan Kin, and I'd like to go over their army special upgrade. Those are the Deathroot arrows, and this is a fantastic way for units that have range attacks to be able to throw on a sort of mock vicious on top of their elite that comes with the elven profile, so that their range attacks essentially are getting to reroll ones on their hit rolls and then occasionally on their damage rolls. So it's a fantastic way to throw out some additional damage and really up the potential output that this unit can do. So it's a really nice upgrade, especially if you're looking to get some extra range attacks, which I know a lot of elven players are itching for right now. The first unit we'll take a look at are the Boss Wraiths, and these guys are nasty because they're throwing out a ton of different attacks. So unlike many of the units that are out there that saw a reduction in their attack profile for these berserker type of units, these guys did not. So with them in 3rd edition, with the addition of Elite and 25 attacks in the regiment and 20 on the troop, that's quite a bit of stuff that you can put out in just a small amount of point profile. So these are great second line attackers in my opinion, just because they can hide behind stuff, and there's some really nice chaff options in this army as well, which I'll go over at least one of them coming up here soon. But there's some really good opportunity for you to put out a ton of damage with these guys just because of the sheer volume of attacks. You stack that on top with an Elite, and then if you get any kind of a support from a mage or perhaps the loot that can throw out a Bane Chant, that kind of thing, or even the cheaper profile options now with the Brew of Strength, these guys could be a real hammer in the right hands. Now let's take a look at the Forest Guard unit. This is a Palace Guard equivalent in the Sylvan Kin list, and they exchange just a couple of things to make them a little bit more interesting. So no longer having the stock Crushing Strength, they come with Thunderous Charge 1. Now that would normally be a little bit of a downgrade in my opinion, but they come with Pathfinder, so they're almost always going to get that Thunderous Charge as long as you get the initial charge. They might take a little bit more skill to use. I think Pathfinder on something that you might want to field these guys in a horde would be a really beneficial thing to do. And then any kind of support, like I said before, is going to be a really nice addition to these guys, because, you know, when you're throwing out that many attacks in a 3+ melee with Elite, that's quite a punishing unit. And Pathfinder means that they're going to be extremely mobile in very tight corners of the board. So it gives you a really nice tool in how you're going to manipulate them and use the board terrain to your advantage and take the best possible outcome with that 3+ melee. The Sylvan Kin are a forest-dwelling race, and in those forests there are some pretty cool creatures. For them, they get access to wild panthers. Now, this unit in particular, I think, makes an excellent chaff option just because the points are fantastic, and you get a speed 10 nimble vicious unit. So all that raving about Snow Foxes for Northern Alliance, this is a very similar unit that can do a very similar thing, and it also comes with a regiment profile. So you've got the capability to move into some really tight spaces in that cavalry base size, take advantage of some corkscrew options, that sort of thing. They are a little bit smaller as far as height goes, but that does make sense, and it also lets some of your more verdant units see over them and use them as a nice screen. So these guys in particular, I think, are really nice. The speed and nimble in this edition is just such a big deal. So I think this is a fantastic chaff option. They're not exactly a hammer option, so that, you know, is when you look at them, that makes the most sense to me. That's how I would want to use them, and I think that it really fits a place within the fluff and the lore of this list, and they're going to be a really useful unit when you're putting an army together. Let's talk about a living legend unit for the Sylvan Kin, and that's the Windborne. This was a unit in 2nd edition that came through the Clash of Kings packs and were in the main elf list. Now they've got a home exclusively in the Sylvan Kin list, and when you look at things like the Silver Breeze Cavalry that have seen a lot of, you know, added hype this edition, we'll call it, because of their mobility, their ability to throw out 14 attacks in the regiment profile, which is new. This is still a troop option with Wind Blast that allows you to roll for damage as well. So I think that these guys are paired very nicely with them. And when you consider that things like the Silver Breeze or the Glade Stalkers with their scout rule, and then also the ability to purchase those Deathroot arrows can come into the picture, then you've got a really formidable ranged force, and these guys allow those ranged options to essentially keep out a distance. So if you can push a unit back with Wind Blast and then keep peppering them with shots, that's a really nice combo that you can throw together. And, you know, putting Elite on Wind Blast 7 is a really nice thing. The Banshee and Night Stalkers can do the same thing, yes, but doesn't have Elite. So this is a really nice option for them. You can only take one unit, yes, but I think that that one unit is going to have a really critical role if you decide to choose these guys. Last, let's take a look at another living legend unit. This is a hero, Elric Nisleen. Now, when you look at this guy, I see a lot of good because that point profile, first of all, was really nice on any kind of a living legend unit. But then you add 6 attacks to the profile that hit on 2s with elite. And then you've got the ability to pair this with your other ranged options because its fireball attack on this guy is going to also add shattering. So anytime that you're throwing out some extra shots throughout the army, tapping the fireball in here to add the shattering on top of it is a really nice little bonus to the nerve roll that you're going to roll in the ranged phase at the end. So in my opinion, this is a absolute Swiss Army knife of a character for that level of points. What you can do with him in combat, because he's still mighty, he's still got some really decent crushing strength, and hitting on 2s with elite, he's not going to miss. He's never going to miss. So really nice way to use him would be the fireballs with range attacks, or if you want to throw him into combat and take something out very easily, you could do that just because those extra little attacks are going to stick. I see him as a very versatile character that's going to be in a lot of lists. Now let's take a look at a personal favorite of mine, and that would be the Twilight Kin. So the Twilight Kin are a less popular race than the other, kindred elves. They are essentially looking to support their cause by summoning units from the Abyss and the Night Stalkers to help bolster what they're doing. So I think this is a really flavorful thing. Now, they obviously have a lot of options from the core elf list, and these are going to be, the standard stuff that you would expect, as far as spears and archers. You've got the Sea Guard that you can do and replace things like the Buccaneers in the second edition list. So it's a really good toolkit that you can take from the master list that would really keep the core of elves there. And we know that those units are good because we've seen them in the main rulebook, which is a really nice addition. But then also on top of that, they've got the ability to summon Night Stalkers and Abyssal units into the fray as well. The first unique unit that we'll take a look at for the Twilight Kin are the Impalers. I love these guys. I instantly went on when I saw them and made sure I ordered 4 regiments of Palace Guards so I could essentially convert them up and make them work as this in a Twilight Kin list. And what I like most about them is that regiment profile, just because 3 plus melee hitting 15 attacks with elite and crushing strength 1 is a very respectable unit for 170 points. Taking into consideration that you can take the Scream Shard on them for life leech 2 just for 1 turn, and that's suddenly a really good option that they could stick around. You've got some really nice healing options elsewhere in the list that I'll go over soon, but these guys could really be a solid core unit that unlocks the rest of the fun units in your army. Now let's take a look at the Blade Dancers. These guys in 2nd edition were still a very powerful unit with 20 and 25 attacks. Now in 3rd edition, they've got a little bit of a reduced attack profile, but now they've got Thunderous Charge, where before they didn't have the ability to modify damage, which was kind of a big hindrance. Now you've got the ability inherently to take a -1 on the damage if you can get a clean charge off. With speed 7, that should be possible because you've got a 14-inch reach that you can go out there and touch something, and with 3 up attacks, elite, that's just fantastic. If you can take advantage of some hill rules, your opponent's going to want to make sure that they, don't let these guys get into the unit that they don't want them to. So taking advantage of chaff is going to be a really nice thing. Having options like gargoyles, for example, could be really nice, or even shadowhounds. Those are some really good available options. I like the Glade Stalkers. Sort of just depends on the playstyle that you want to go to, but with these in particular, I think that you need a little bit of a chaff to get them to where they want, and then when you can hit something with them, they're going to be devastating. That many attacks with Elite and Thunderous Charge, at least 1, and let's not even consider Bane Chain or Brewer Strength. That's a lot of good stuff there. And then on top of that, they've got a Fearless Nerve in their profile. So really good options, and something that I think a lot of Twilight Kin players will be very happy to see. Let's take a look at our first Chromebound unit. This is the Chromebound Abyssal Horsemen. So you'll notice that they have the Chromebound keyword built into them, but these are essentially the Abyssal Horsemen from the Abyss. And what you get with them is an upgraded profile over the Dark Knight equivalent that Twilight Kin had in 2nd edition by quite a bit. So now you've got an inherent crushing strength, fury, and regeneration in that same profile of 18 attacks in the regiment. Yes, there is a point bump that comes with that, but I think that's a very fair trade considering that they're going to have a lot more hitting power. And when you compare these to something like Soul Reaver Cavalry, this is a very similar unit for just a little bit cheaper, and I really like the fact that they have the regeneration. I think that's going to be a very beneficial thing to them, and they unlock. So very important in order to unlock some of the other, essentially irregular units that are the Chromebound options in the list, things like Shadow Hulks, Mind Screeches, that sort of thing. So great way to get the wonderful monster unlocks and hero unlocks that are in this army, and I think that they're still a hard-hitting, staying power unit that has the ability to stick around. And when you pair them with the Crone, which I'll go over next, you'll see how deadly this could be. So here is the Summoner-Crone, and flavor-wise, this is just awesome because she is essentially summoning these insane creatures to help them and throw them out there so that the elves can stick around. What she does is even better because when you take a look at that profile for the Wicked Miasma, she is able to cast Drain Life onto a unit and then use the healing component within 18 inches onto a Chromebound unit. So if you're a player that wants to take advantage of those Chromebound stuff, the Chromebound units, that's a really good opportunity to keep them around. And like I said with the prior unit, if you got a unit like Regeneration, then healing capability with the Drain Life from 18 inches away. And then there's also a couple of other spell upgrades that she can take that are really nasty in a profile that's only 95 points. That's a really, really good option. I think that as far as spellcasters go, she is devastating for what she can actually do, and she's going to be a real annoyance to your opponent. So make sure you protect her and make sure that you keep her in line with the Chromebound unit so that she can just throw out the extra damage with Drain Life and then heal things up when needed. Last, we'll take a look at Mikail, and this is a living legend that came back from First Edition. His stats in First Edition were absolutely ridiculous. Ask Nick Williams to share with you if you're curious. He's a little bit more toned down in Third Edition, but that makes sense for balance-wise, but he does have a special rule that I think is fantastic. So the Sword of Umbra essentially makes him a monster hero dragon hunter extraordinaire, and more so than any other unit in the game, because he's a cavalry option that has the ability to double his attacks on any of those unit types. So if you've got a dragon that wants to park in the backfield, this dude can spin around and go put some really respectable damage on it. With Elite, if you double those 6 attacks to 12, all of a sudden, Crushing Strength 2, the dragon's going to actually be kind of afraid to go and have that unit attack it. So, very good option as far as I'm concerned. You think that the spellcasters there could possibly, you know, pop a Drain Life onto it as well, and then all of a sudden he's hitting it, and then all of a sudden your dragon with Dread is going to just go away. So, very scary option, and I think that I will make sure to order him and get him painted up and use him. I do think he's a little pricey at $260, but he's going to have a place and he's going to have a role for sure, especially as far as the meta is concerned. If people want to start taking dragons again and that sort of thing, I think it's a really good option to shut down, you know, giants and all sorts of things. So Sweaty Gigante, look out, he's coming for you.